Welcome back to Curacell Podcast. My name is Melvin Malanga, and I'm the Enterprise Manager East Africa for Curacell. And today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to for a while. My guest today has built and run insurance operations across India, Mozambique, Kenya, and beyond. He's been in different worlds and he's seen different ways of how insurance operates. So his name is Sandip. I'll just maybe welcome you to the show, Sandip. It's a pleasure to really have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted.
Okay, great. So maybe even before we jump into your story, and maybe get to understand you better, you can just give us your background right now, in terms of currently where you are, in the world, and also what you're working on, and also maybe before you go to where you are, and then we can jump in.
Okay. Presently, actually, I am running my independent practice, particularly focused at artificial intelligence management systems. So, what I'm trying to do in this part of the world is, getting AI strategy plus the implementation and governance in the one single platform. So, typically, it is a gap all around the world. Typically, when you actually hire someone or ask a consulting service, maybe like Bain or McKinsey, to do AI strategy, so they will do an AI strategy for you, and then actually the implementation then becomes a different story altogether. And then this associated the projects which come out of the strategy, now they need to be aligned with the company's business objectives. So when you do an AI strategy, it's no longer a subcomponent of the strategy. It is actually part of the strategy itself. And all the projects which come out of after you implement an AI strategy are now more or less, you can say, part of the core operations or the business objectives you're trying to achieve. Now, whatever the artificial intelligence management systems you would want to implement, whether number one, they align with your business objectives. How do you know the technology what you have selected will deliver the desired objectives? What kind of data is being used? Now, there are certain things which I would like to mention at the end of that means while we carry on our conversation, especially this alignment particular to this and implementation of technology, and then in terms of the how trustworthy your systems are. So that's the space which I have established my practice on, and
Yeah.
uh, and before doing that, I had a very long corporate career. Uh, I started my career in a very different field. It is not in insurance. I'm basically an engineer, so I worked in various projects. Then, I worked as a sales engineer, got promoted. Then I had an entry into the insurance world, actually on the underwriting and claim side. From there, actually, I had internal promotions, and at one point of time, I was handling one of the largest health portfolios in India in 2010, where I was delivering health services to more than 3.25 million lives. So then, actually, this MBA bug caught me. So I left everything in the middle, went to UK, studied during that time. Bradford University School of Management was ranked ninth as per FT ranking.
Amazing.
Completed my MBA. Then I joined a British broking company called Willistow Watson. So I was placed in Papua New Guinea, where I had some very interesting experience. And from there, actually, I came down to Mozambique to start an insurance company from scratch. So I was there for 3 years, and we became the fastest growing insurance company in that market. And then I was recruited by another Kenyan company to start their startup or greenfield, however you define it, in Rwanda. So we did some interesting stuff. We turned around the company in 19 months, which is one of the fastest turnaround in Rwanda. And then after that, I was recruited by GA Insurance. So I came down to Kenya in 2019, and since then, Kenya has been my home. So I worked in
Nice.
GA, and I'm quite sure the antecedents
Yeah.
of that. And
Yeah.
then after GA, I joined another holding company as group CEO, where I was managing three startup insurance companies. Then I got into a reinsurance venture, which was again on the startup space. So after that, now I've decided to do something of my own. So that's where I
Ah,
am.
nice.
So in a
Nice.
nutshell.
Nice. Hey, a lot. You've given me a lot there. So even before you've given me now a background to where to start my first question, but there's a lot there that I'm just excited about because it's like you're always on the move, right? It's like you don't just settle. Because like right now, like you've mentioned, you're already in AI governance, and that's what you're exploring. But even before that, you are doing something else, and basically things to do with underwriting and claims. But you are moving from different market to different. So you started in Mozambique, you've gone to Rwanda, you've come to Kenya. And then in Kenya, you've not just settled in one company, you've moved to different companies. Now you're doing your own thing on the side. So that really makes it look like you're always on the move and you're always looking for a new venture. So that now gives me a background of where to give you my first question, whereby you pivoted from engineering, like you're saying, you had an MBA bag, like you said it. So you pivoted from engineering. Now you went into a different side of where you walked into underwriting and claims, right? So I wanted to know at the moment, what made you like pivot from that side to insurance?
Okay, my entry into insurance was quite accidental. I joined the insurance industry in 2006 when in India, the insurance industry was liberalized. Other than that, there were only four parastatal companies, nationalized companies, which were handling insurance business in India. So during that time, there was a shortage of talent. The industry was not that structured. So that gave opportunity for people like us to come into insurance. And frankly, I would thank the HR of that particular company. They were calling me for 3 months because that time we never knew what insurance was. Only thing we knew about insurance was somebody calling over a phone and trying to sell life insurance. So, and I never wanted to do that kind of a job. So, uh, So what happened is that a very senior person who now retired from ICICI Lombard, and I'm very grateful to him. He gave me a call and said that we have been trying to call you for 3 months. Why are you not coming? So why don't we just come and have a cup of tea? So that's how I went for the interview, and later I realized why that means why my profile was useful for them because I was selling industrial equipment. And so I was quite well versed with the industrial processes. So whether it is a blast iron or even it's a bakery or it's a ferrosilicon plant. So I know how the system works because that is what you need to know to sell industrial equipments. And that is exactly precisely the knowledge they were looking for in PNC underwriting actually. That was the fit. So that's
Of
how I
how you
came into
pivoted?
insurance. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's
Hey,
a
yeah.
story. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have more questions on that. So okay, so we understand why. If somebody who was
Mhm.
really persistent for 3 months calling you. I think at this time, I don't think that can happen because right now that we have minimal job opportunities and people who want those jobs are so many. So looking for you for 3 months would be hard. But I think they wanted your talent, like you've mentioned. There's a reason why they specifically wanted you. It's your knowledge in the
Mhm.
industrial side of things, right? So that is very key. Now, you've also mentioned something else that is coming in the next question of where you didn't want to be that person who's calling to sell life insurance. Like basically, you didn't want to do the sales bit. But as we know, most people come in insurance through the sales part, sales and distribution, right? And then now they pivot into the other side. Now, you yourself, you came in through claims and underwriting. So basically, the lost business end of things. So how does that now shape you and eventually makes you build an insurance? Like, how does that make you look different in terms of how the industry works and operates?
Different clarification. I was already a sales engineer actually before joining.
Okay, so you've done sales.
So I had this sales acumen. Now,
Okay,
during
okay.
that time, they were desperately trying to get more engineers into the insurance industry because nobody wanted to join because people simply didn't know. So when I actually started studying more about insurance, it somehow I felt that it was a natural fit. Over a period of time, so what happened is that when you start understanding the technical bit of things or you come from an operational background, you actually become a much better salesman, especially in a complex B2B situation or um, uh, you know um, what we call an institutional sales background. Now, here on the property and casualty side, during those times, also underwriting was not a desktop job. So you were
Mm.
actively out in the field, actually,
Okay.
constantly around. So that helped my, and then but there was an opportunity. There was what we call an IJP internal job posting for the position of branch manager. So we didn't have the concept of branches and all these things during those times. So first time in that company, these things were taking in shape, and then I applied for it. And so at the age of 29, I became a branch manager. So which I was the again
Oh,
one of the youngest uh, in that company. So to answer to your question is that in a complex B2B environment, things like your technical expertise, things like your insights, what you can give to the client, and things like when you challenge a client onto a certain platform, actually, these becomes much more of a game decider rather than the pricing itself. So sales, especially problem solving sales, which is typically, I think, insurance is, especially on the institutional and B2B side. So that's where my transition happened, and it was smooth. And from my experience, what I have seen is that people who come from this kind of backgrounds are much more successful in sales rather than pure sales, actually.
amazing, amazing. So basically, what we're looking at here is you've been able to come in, you've been able to hit big milestones. Like you said yourself, at 29, you're already a manager, right? So that means you're gaining momentum in terms of how you do things and you're able to build and move forward. Now, from your background yourself, you've also mentioned you've run and built operations, right? You've done India, you've done Mozambique, you've done Kenya, and even beyond. And even to add on that, you speak Portuguese, which is quite interesting because I've not met very many people who speak Portuguese, so that's very, very rare too. So I wanted to ask, in terms of now your story itself as an insurer, the market where you've gone in, one, you don't know the language, you don't have a playbook, you don't even know where to start with the network, right? What is it actually like? How do you go about things starting from there?
Yeah, I'll be quite candid about it. I got connected to a Kenyan investor who was actually trying to open an operation in Mozambique. Now, to be very honest, I've never considered Mozambique as a career option. And then when I researched that, like it's not even an English-speaking country, so I had to think twice. I read one quote by Sheryl Sandberg, who was the CEO of Facebook. She told that if somebody asks you to go to moon, what do you say? You say yes because you will you will get to know only by going to moon how to go to moon. It doesn't require your previous because nobody knows how to go to moon. Like that was the analogy actually. Sorry, it was Mars, not moon. Sorry. So basically, I was connected to the investor through my network. And but even before saying yes, actually, I was in two minds whether because I have never considered a career in Mozambique. I didn't know how the country was. Um, and then I started doing my research, and then I was in two minds. And then, as I said, I read a quote by Sandy Selberg, which says, she said that if you are invited to go to Mars, what do you do? Like I'm paraphrasing it. So basically, but because you don't get a training to go Mars, right? So you
Yeah,
will
yeah, yeah,
learn on the way. So you say yes, and you will learn how to go to Mars. So that
yeah.
was, in fact, that was my motivation. So I landed in Mozambique without knowing a word of Portuguese. It was very different, and we started a company with two chairs and two tables in an empty house. And then soon during the start, I actually took an interpreter with me to adapt, but soon I found that, it is not going to work. So over a period of time, I made quite an effort to pick up Portuguese, and then I went to school actually, that Institute of Languages over there. learned, got my fluency, operational fluency. I'm not saying that I would be always grammatically correct, but at least it allowed me to read the contracts and undertake conversation in Portuguese. I have not spoken it for last 7, 8 years, so I'm 7 years. So I'm more than 7 years.
I
Yeah,
hope,
it's
I
nine
hope, I
years.
hope
So
it does not, you've not stopped that understanding it. You still can be able to like,
yeah. I can understand it, but if I'm in an environment, then within 3 months I will pick it back. So the
okay,
memory
okay.
kicks in. Yeah.
That's
So
interesting because now the question was, I'm sorry you've not even answered the question I've asked, but now deep in between that, because there's a lot you've said there. So you're going into Mozambique. First of all, you're setting up an office with two chairs. You have an interpreter for you to be able to
mhm.
talk to people, and it's a new place, new culture. So I wanted to understand, what was the what was your biggest challenge, even before we go back to this? So you are here, you are new, you have an office, you're supposed to start things. You cannot even do things alone. That means you have to be working with somebody else to be interpreting what people are telling you, right? So what was the biggest challenge there?
Challenge as always, it is the language. Um, then I would not say culture was the biggest challenge because I really love the culture and I easily adapted to it.
Ah,
Okay,
amazing.
so typically when people come to places like Mozambique, people complain. That means most biggest challenge what people say is adaptation with the culture. For me, it was not. So I had made that means very specific efforts to integrate into the culture. So that helped me a lot. And then within that context, after handling the regulatory issues and others, then how do you find pockets to do business? What would be your need to start the business? I think identification of that is from a professional perspective that is very important because once you identify it um, and get over it, after that it becomes a smooth sale. Of course, there will be one or two hiccups, that is always there
Along
in
the
any
way.
place. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. Now, this takes me to the second section of the of our podcast today. So this is more to do with building an insurance operation from scratch, right? You've done these
Mhm.
not once, not twice, severally in different markets.
Yeah.
So I think if it comes to gurus or consultants who we should sit down and listen to when it comes to this is you. So you've already mentioned a few nitty-gritties of how that would happen in Mozambique, right? But now let me just
Mhm.
paint a picture for you. So imagine um tomorrow you meet an insurer who wants to start building an insurance company, right? So what how do you go about it in terms of what you should do, right? What do you build first? What comes second? And also, what do founders consistently underestimate? You've hinted at a few things of where you find first of all the solution and then now work around it. But now in a situation of where now I'm a new insurer, I want to start tomorrow to build. How do I go about things?
First thing I always say, is context because context without context it's only text. So your operating philosophy is the first thing. What exactly do you want to do? That means,
Mm,
first of all, your motivation. Why do you want to start an insurance company? What is your motivation, and what do you want to do by starting an insurance company? And what is your plan of evolution, actually? So that
yeah.
that has to be there from day one. Otherwise, it will be you will be like just an operator. You had money, you opened an insurance company now, with just you're
When the
operating.
tough gets
So
tough, it needs you to be able to understand why you're doing it in the first place, right?
yeah. So that
Yeah.
operating philosophy has to be there.
Mhm.
Now, here I am assuming that okay, you have here I'm assuming that means already Kenya maybe as a jurisdiction you have already identified that this is the market I want to operate because of X
Mm,
Y as that reason.
mm.
Now the second thing is that once your operational philosophy is finalized, then what is the path you are going to take? So if you're going to start
Okay.
a conventional insurance company, uh, then you need to be but that means why do you want to start a conventional insurance company? So that is so
Insurance.
so
Yeah.
it, there is a two there is a divergent, or you
Mm,
want to disrupt the market and want to have suppose an AI native insurance company. So then if it is a conventional insurance company, then your next actually you start with your regulatory capital, and the markets you want to target, and then most importantly, the manpower, what you want to deploy. So if it
mm,
is an AI native insurance company, then what is, I call it as a technology philosophy. How do you want to do it? Okay. Because
yeah.
now here, once you want to go AI native or a technology first company, you need to understand most of the technologies what we are talking about, which are AI native, are in Y Combinator stage. So
Mm, mm, mm,
there,
yeah.
what you are going to build and what you're going to acquire and how. Okay.
Mm,
Now your business philosophy will depend, you will be stitched around that. Now, as I said, in terms of here, the governance part and the strategy part becomes very important. Now, with the kind of technology you want to deploy, what are the different business objectives you want to attain? Now, so that's how actually you drill down. So I've created an
yeah.
entire blueprint
This,
how it is to be
yeah.
done. So you drill
Okay.
down, then of course it is human centric. You need to get best of the talent to who is
Mm,
appreciative of the technology, who has an understanding, and who is quite willing to do things out of the box. So those things
yeah.
come into picture. So
Mm,
I am at this moment that till that I am not so now this is completely my view. People may
yeah.
differ on it. Uh, I'm not so bullish about business during the start of during that phase, because I know business will come once you start delivering. So your ability to handle the business should be the first thing which you need to put in place rather than the business itself.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice. I like that. So there's so much wisdom you've brought in there, but I'll just touch on a few things. The first one is building your business or operational philosophy, right? Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
choose a region and choose a niche in that region, right? So you're going to operate in. So that is very important in terms of how you're building it. Now we've gone into now what you're currently doing, the AI governance, whereby you've been able to now understand that just apart from just being able to be able to do what you're doing, you also need to be able to have an understanding of exactly what the operations are in that company or in that country.
So one of the things actually what I have noticed, if you study the not only Kenyan insurance market, but I can tell most of the insurance market in Africa, what is happening is that we are selling the same products using the same technology, more or less to the same clientele. So,
Just repetition.
so now as an operator, you need to decide which of these three variables you want to play.
Mhm.
So that's why I started with that means you need to have a company philosophy and a technology philosophy, is that so that you can determine which of these three levers you want to press. Okay, so
Leverage, yeah.
because three will have three different priorities actually.
Mhm.
Now, I'll give you one example. There is a new company in India called Kiwi General Insurance. It has been started by my ex-colleagues in ICICI Lombard. Okay, so they were in AIG and then they decided. So actually, they are funded. They are venture capital funded. So first 2 years actually they spent in building up the operating platform. Now, once their operating platform is ready, now they will not only scale, but they have plans to hyperscale. Now, that would not have been possible if you don't have the ability to deliver. So that's why I'm saying is that business, as much as the whole thing revolves around it, but ability to handle business is much more important than business, because once you demonstrate to the market your ability to handle business and what you want to deliver, and and you gain the trust, business will automatically come.
Yeah. So
So
validity and
that's
also gaining that confidence, right? So you're saying you said something very important there. The most important thing is the ability to do the business, right? Be able to deliver the business than the business itself. So you have to be able to now be able to do it like that. So I think now that is amazing. So let me now pivot to something else now, given that we are now talking about the ability to do the business. My question is specifically in emerging markets, right? So what is the biggest killer for insurers, right? Especially insurers that are coming up. Is it more specifically anchored on pricing, claims, leakages, or capital, or talent, or something else? Already you've touched on a few things regarding that, but maybe now we can get to the meat of the details.
the biggest killer sometimes is lack of common sense in doing business. and absence of patience.
Lack of common sense and a sense of impatience.
Because whatever next, the three things which you mentioned is claims or claims and underwriting. This is
Mm.
one is a everything is correlated to each other. First of all, as I said,
Yeah,
because if once you have a company philosophy and an evolution philosophy, you will exactly know where to operate. Okay. Now, what kind of risk
yeah,
you want to select? Now, you see, I'll give you an example to say to mean what I'm trying to say is that so in
mm,
insurance is a very different kind of a business, especially on a carrier, right? It is not a transaction. So here, basically, if you are taking 100 shillings of premium, then you are undertaking a liability of 10,000 shillings. Typically, this is how it operates. In other businesses,
mm,
what happens is that if you're doing 100 shillings of transaction, you can either gain 1 shilling, 2 shilling, 5 shilling, depending on what is the operating margin you are opting. But here, you're taking 100 shilling, you're creating a liability of 10,000 shillings. Now, exactly, it doesn't matter if you are charging 99 shillings or 105 shillings, because when a claim comes, you have to pay 10,000 shillings,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. I see the
So
common
if you're
sense.
yeah, so here the segment and the niche becomes much more important. Okay,
Mm,
then correctively pricing it. So that also is a very strong element of that is human judgment. Actually, you cannot replace it.
mm,
Even the underwriting
yeah,
tools on an AI native structure, this kind of complex decisions are always human centered. The more
human
what
judgment
AI
matters.
does in
Yeah,
those cases is much more augmentation rather than making the real decisions itself, especially when it comes to human, other than commoditized products. So,
yeah,
uh, that is the crux. So if you get this wrong, and if you don't have patience, especially in the first 3 years of operation, you are going to do. So what typically happens when you talk with many of the CEOs in the market, they are under so much of pressure actually in producing certain numbers. So what happens is that everybody takes the easiest way around. So which is doing motor insurance, and you know the state of motor insurance. Now both
yeah,
motor
yeah,
insurance and health insurance, they are cash flow management business actually. So so I it's yeah, so that's why the patience and common sense, because underwriting and claims are
yeah.
totally correlated to each other actually.
Yeah, yeah. So I now get it. Initially, when you said it, I was like, eh? Common sense, patience. But now that you've now deciphered it, it looks clear to me and I understand. You've mentioned AI severally, so I wanted to pivot to section three, where we're now talking about technology and what it gets right and wrong, right? So the first question is regarding core system replacement, because we as people who are also in the AI in the AI space for insurers get a lot of these. So every time you go to an insurer, they're like, "Yeah, we like what you're doing. We like your solution, but we are still dealing with our core system. We're still looking for a new core system. We're still now implementing our new core system." So you yourself, you've experienced this. So my question is, the insurance industry burns enormous amount of money on core system replacement, and then they overrun, or some of them just fail, right? You've lived through some of them or some of those experiences. So what did it teach you and about building versus buying?
Okay, so I have done several core system implementation, and if I would be candid, I got one right. Um, two were failures. Now, you have to understand actually the reason why this happens is that there is a gap. The You see, the IT department in an insurance company, it's basically a project management team rather than a development team. Okay.
Interesting.
And vendors who supply software, there's a gap in exact insurance knowledge. So basically, you can say that there is a gap, and then from an when you form a cross-functional team to that mitigates to somehow, but you if you don't get your workflow designed right, then you have an issue. And at the same time, there is a tendency of a lot of vendors actually to oversell the capability of what their system actually. So I have seen many situations wherein the demo which we were given and the capabilities which we were taught, and during the implementation, you will typically find people are changing specs and trying to. So that is issue number one. Now, number two is that core system as a concept will become redundant because we are now going towards an E2E agentic system driven processes. So basically, if you have to think in that way, it's like you have multiple inputs, then you have multiple agents which typically mimic the human cognitive behavior and execute task which a typical human should actually execute, and they are coordinated by a agent, AI orchestration layer, and then you get in generated output. So this is where actually the world is shifting. So core system as a concept will become redundant. That is my thesis. Now, typically, what happens if you see now for legacy companies, whatever they have invested, actually it's not immediately possible to change. So that's why in the way we do things is deploy, reshape, and invent. So if you have a legacy core system, we try to deploy certain amount of agentic systems so that certain amount of works can be automated. So if you are an absolutely new company, then actually you try to redefine the workflows or completely invent new workflows to create efficiencies in the in the platform itself. That's why I say that you need to have a technology philosophy, because now once you are using AI, now AI from day one is dumb. Okay, so the model needs to be trained what kind of data you are using. So you need to have a data warehousing platform. So basically, you need to create a technology enterprise architecture much before you start an operation. You can deploy it phase by phase, but you need to have that. That's why I talked about the operation, the operating philosophy of the company, technology philosophy of the company, then going to the, reinvention of the process. So it totally depends on which side of the, are you a legacy company or are you absolutely a new company? But my thesis is that core system as a concept will become obsolete after a few days, a
Oh,
few
that's
years actually. So
interesting.
days.
That's interesting. Hearing it first
Yeah,
from you. So you're saying with over time, the core system is going to just be something of the past and you're moving into a new era, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So
So
with
even if you
technology
start an
again,
insurance
yeah.
company today, so what
Mm,
happens?
mm.
Technology has not yet developed, but you may still be required to use a core system at least for the first few years till you build up the AI stack. Then
Yeah.
actually, as more and more systems become workflows become agentic, the core system will automatically become redundant. So that.
Okay. Okay. Great, great. Yeah. So again with technology, now let's look at where technology moves the needle, right? So like you've mentioned, a lot of people invest in technology. You've mentioned your own experience where you've done several core systems and only one, we've said has been successful. So where does technology generally change the economics of an insurer? um, from your own experience, right? So is it just all hypes or there's really impact when technology is now being used when you adapt technology as an insurer and your operations?
Okay, now what I'm going to say in terms of what is the present state and the theory of it actually. So presently, there are a lot of companies which are making huge amount of efforts. That means allocation of resources, both in terms of manpower and investment in technology. Uh, but in terms of the real returns, that is actually a question mark actually. what is exactly the real returns. But what I see as the whereas as I said that there has to be some level of maturity. Okay, so once you attain a certain level of maturity, I think technology will really develop in getting the operating cost down for certain operations, then increasing the efficiency. So what we call as how do we make a normal employee to a 10x employee? So that is where actually it will play a very important portion. So you basically, when you start designing your workflow, so you will basically have two kind of jobs. One is repetitive dump jobs and what are complex decision making jobs. So all the dump jobs will be automated. Then what AI presently is very good at, AI is very good at trend identification actually, fraud management, because again once you have good trend identification, you can actually easily detect anomalies in the system on the data what you process. So if you take
Yeah.
these two, which AI presently is very good at, so in terms of product control, what we call as product intelligence, it is going to have very enormous benefits. That means which product to scale, how, what is the product configuration, okay, sorry, product features which are working, when to descale it,
Yes.
when to scale it. So these are
Mm.
certain things which AI can do. I think AI can do very well. And secondly, as actually the analytics portion, which most of the insurance companies and not only insurance companies
Yeah.
is struggling with. So how does an underwriter cockpit look like? How does the CFO cockpit look like? Do you have access to real time information, or you are telling someone who is scraping data from your system, creating a report, and by the time you have the report, already certain changes have occurred into the fast moving system. So
Yeah.
these are certain things I think AI will have a very big impact.
Yeah. I think on that is very important because with data analytics, it's very easy for you to be able to capture information or capture details that are very important for you to act on quickly at the right time. And I think it's also impactful in the organization. So, like you've mentioned, you might get information right now, even before you act on it, things have moved already. So things have shifted. So it's very important for you to be able now to come in at the right time so that you can be able to do it well. So I'll shift from technology and go to a different section. I think this is where now you also said you're dealing with. So we're talking about AI and governance. So this is the new frontier. So my first question would be on why governance, right? So you've moved to the AI frontier. Now you're doing something different. So what convinced you from a career of underwriting that AI governance is not just AI, but the next battleground? Because like you've already mentioned, you've already said something else, which is, I say, controversial to a way whereby people will now move from the core system, right? So now we are also here. You're moving into AI governance. So I wanted to understand why AI governance and why now?
So in my earlier answer, I actually touched about having agentic employees in the company and the human agent interaction.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
agent is also an employee of the company who is not a human. So there will be various jobs which would be automated. Now, without a proper governance mechanism, how do you rein in the control, right? Because how do you know the
Yeah.
output which is being produced by a particular automated workflow design
Yeah.
is
Automated
actually
workflow. Yeah.
trustworthy? How do you know the data which is there in your data warehouse is the right data? It has not been poisoned. How do you know that the objectives which an AI employee is going is actually in line not only with your strategy but with the various company policies what you have? Suppose if your HR policy typically
Yeah.
defines, it does not allow any kind of discrimination in terms of race, ethnicity, and others, right? Now, how do you know? Suppose if you are actually mining on a huge amount of health data, so how do you know that the output which is given by an AI agent does not have that bias and it is aligned with your
Yeah.
HR policy? So I'm again, so that's why governance framework are very important, whether it is AI or a human employee. I am a very big advocate of it, because then it may then the whole issue of trust, which is fundamental to the insurance industry, actually gets. So if you come up with a situation wherein the output produced are not trustworthy, then it affects the entire reputation, and under the you will get into a lot of legal problems, right from GDPR to now to various other legal issues, which can be conflicted based on ethnicity, based on race, based on many other factors actually. So
Mm.
this is just one
Okay.
example where I get why
Yeah,
the governance in AI is so important.
it's important. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll go to the next question, which is to do with the pilot purgatory. So this is statistics now. So only 7% of insurers globally have scaled AI past pilots, right? So the people do come in, they try the POC, but they don't move forward. Most are stuck. You, as an expert, from the inside, what do you think gets most of these people stuck on what we call now pilot purgatory? And what do the 7% do differently so that they're able to move forward from just the pilots to now be implementation?
Okay, number one, the 7% which you are talking about, people like AIG and others, first of all, they have the money to burn to invest in this kind of projects. Token costs are very high, so they have access to very strong models, that top end models which they can implement. Now, if you see from, suppose from a Kenyan perspective, the biggest insurance company is here. How much? They will be around 180 million to dollars of revenue. Now compare this with how much money you can spend in top end systems. So for the emerging markets, we need a very different kind of a solution. Is that the reliance should be much more on open source model, which can run on localized server and with very strong guardrails. So that's where I think, from an emerging market perspective, we need to move. And data, what kind of data which you are using now? There is something which is called AI readiness. Now, suppose if you are a health insurer, you're sitting with tons of data. How much of this data is in a particular format or with particular metadata that can be used in training, right? At least you need to have a
Yeah.
certain bit of sample size. So, uh,
Mm.
going through an AI starting from strategy to implementation is a journey itself. But I think most of the companies whom I'm speaking, especially the big companies, are recognizing that, and they are taking steps into that
Into
particular
that.
direction, rather than.
Mm.
And then something about, you mentioned about POC and proof of concept. So these will also become redundant, because what happens is that once you do an experimentation, it's a small scale experimentation, it sits somewhere. So it has to be, so any kind of this kind of experiments has to be, of course, under a certain guardrail, has to be part of the
Yeah.
mainstream operation actually to get it
Mm.
adopted.
Okay. 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 Thank you for that. I think that's clear. In terms of what is supposed now for them to be able now to just make sure that before they move from pilot to be able to implementation, it's a journey, like you've said, and there are several steps that they're supposed to now have clear pathways in terms of what they need to do in those stages before they can do that. So thank you for that.